All right, happy Friday, and welcome to July Tableau Server Admin User Group. My name is Mark Wu. I'm the Tableau Server Admin, and also I co-lead this Server and Admin User Virtual Group. Just some quick logistics before we start. Everyone will be muted during the whole presentation for better recording quality. Please use your Q&A button to submit questions at any time. We will try to answer your questions at the end. Do we record this session? Yes, of course. The recording will be available hopefully early next week at the Tableau community. Let me post a link where you can find the recordings. All right, just post it in the chat. Today we have an awesome speaker, Michael. He is a server admin, and he is going to demo some new features myself I'm looking forward to. All right, without any further ado, I'm going to turn to Michael.
All right, thank you, Mark. Thanks everybody for attending. Much appreciated. My name is Michael Perillo. I am a co-lead of the Phoenix Tableau user group. I am a desktop qualified associate, server certified professional, and Tableau ambassador for the user groups. You got my contact information up on the screen there. You can reach me at michael@phoenixtug.com, on Twitter at Michael Perillo, and on LinkedIn as well. So what we're going to talk about today is really some of the new things that are coming out in Tableau. So for those of you that haven't kind of jumped over to Tableau Server 10.5, we'll talk a little bit about what's new in that release. We'll talk about some of the highlights or things that I'm excited about in 2018.1. And we'll also talk about some of the things that you really need to know about coming in 2018.2. Some of those new features are going to be the extensions. We'll also talk a little bit about the Tableau Services Manager, and we'll talk about site roles. And then at the end, hopefully we can have a pretty good discussion about if you haven't already made that leap to 10.5, is that something you're still looking at doing, or is there enough compelling evidence to skip that and just move to 2018 dot whatever it is you want? So before we do that, I've got a live survey or a poll, if you will, that I'd like for everybody to kind of participate at. So the link, Mark, if you want to copy that down and maybe throw that into the chat. I've got about 6 questions. And some of the things that I'd like to know about, other admins is, if you're brand new to server administration, how long you've been doing that, if you're running kind of in a single node, multi-node type of thing, if you've got a lot of automation behind the scenes, what kind of features are you looking at implementing? Are you most excited about? So just take maybe a minute here. Again, if you can, grab that link, fill out that survey, and then at the end, we can kind of either explore some of those responses, or I can look at those offline and then share those with Mark. But again, it gives me an idea, and I'm sure the whole community idea of where we're at, have discussions about what are our concerns, some of those challenges that we're facing, why we're not innovative or innovating as fast as we could or should. So those things are always interesting and topics well received. All right, Mark, you able to capture that link okay?
Yeah, I just sent everyone the link.
Okay, remember the bit.ly stuff is all case sensitive, so it's all lowercase.
That's correct. I'm doing the survey by myself now.
All right, good deal. All right, so what's new in server? So I think the most compelling feature that came to 10.5 was Hyper. Uh, in my experience and talking with other server administrators and people that manage the platforms, the biggest bottleneck was kind of the Tableau data extract engine. The limitations that we had, the performance, the time it was taking to render dashboards, and I think we're all pretty much aware that it depends on how dashboards are built, on what data. There's a lot more underlying things than just the engine itself and performance related. But I think again, the conception was, hey, Hyper's going to pretty much solve all your problems. And we can definitely have a conversation about whether that's true or not. In my experience working in 10.5 for a while, working in 2018.1 and 2018.2, it's not. It's not the end-all be-all. It's not going to save you from everything. If you don't have good data governance and best practices that are on the data side and on the development side, you're still going to have performance suffrage. So is Hyper one of those things that you're really looking forward to? And do you have the belief that that's going to solve, any and all your challenges? The other thing that came out in 10.5 was Tableau Server on Linux. If that's something you're doing, that was probably a well-received present. We also had nested projects and improvements to subscriptions, so you can add groups and so forth. The nested projects is a little interesting because in my experience, there's always been that request from users, hey, we'd like another project, a sub-project, something that layered in. And I was never sold on the belief that, that was something that you really needed. To me, the main project folder was really just an artificial container. Obviously you had set permissions and you can customize those based on what's in the project itself. You can do it managed or unmanaged, if you're familiar with that, where it propagates all the way down to the view or not. You can set the granularity, but depending on how you had your security architecture, it was easily attainable through just parent folders. However, I've come to the realization that there are some use cases where things don't make a lot of sense for that, and there's some great reasoning behind having those nested projects, having some automation maybe built into your process to address different levels of permissions or access for those nested projects, and again, maybe for organization purposes. So that was definitely a well-received addition. Kind of changed my viewpoint on things, and now leveraging nested projects more and more as I start to do more deployments and engage with different types of business entities. I think this was pretty much a consensus, the Vision tooltip. So that was really kind of, at the desktop feature level, but I think for server administrators, for most of us, I think at least, we have to be cognizant of what's also in Tableau Desktop, those types of features. How our users are going to be using those functions, whether it's kind of the advanced analytics pieces of it, the new visualizations, access to different types of data connectors and so forth. And then how is that going to impact the server platform? How are we going to provide new levels of services around security and data architecture and data discovery? So Viz and Tooltips was one of those things where, I can organize my workbooks in such a way where now you have the ability to show a little bit more granular information. So instead of clicking from dashboard to dashboard, you can have some a little bit more granular level information inside of a tooltip. one of the things that I really like is this feature that was introduced, renaming workbooks, especially for those users that use kind of the default dashboard 1 and sheet 1. Most of you, I think, have some automation kind of built in to alert you or alert your users when that occurs. However, for a lot of us that kind of use Tableau out of the box or haven't gone to that level of sophistication, being able to go in and kind of address that versus having users republish or download, re-upload their work in those cases has been really well received. The next one that I'm a big fan of is data source recommendations. So this kind of introduced kind of your machine learning aspect into the Tableau server platform to really understand how your users are using different data sources throughout the platform, and then provide some recommendations on what you could and should be using potentially. Now, 10.5, the introduction to those features has been great. Part of the talk here today, though, is if you haven't already kind of made that leap to 10.5 and you like all of those features that were released, consider possibly Tableau 2018.1. Or if you're still on the fence, maybe even 2018.2, as that should be released shortly. Cross our fingers if everything's granted, maybe even by the end of this presentation. Doubtful, but we can hope. In 2018.1, if you're using Tableau Online, we see dashboard starters. And that's kind of a really cool aspect, that I'm hoping, will come to kind of the on-premise versions here soon. But if you've got things like Salesforce or Eloqua or some of those other things, you've already got predefined dashboards, especially for ServiceNow, if you're using like an ITSM platform. Those have really nice visualizations that kind of just plug and play, and you kind of get that really good consensus of what's going on in those environments. So that, if you're a Tableau Online customer, and you haven't made that leap, or you should have, that's available to you. I think this next one, I kind of go back and forth on. It's definitely a welcome feature, the downgrade of workbooks from the web. And I'll kind of give you two reasons why. In a traditional enterprise environment, it is my belief that you should have some continuity with the server version and your desktop version. I understand now that there's cases where you may not have that control on how you deploy software. It may be self-managed, or maybe another team or division, and you may have kind of a heterogeneous environment where you have a mix of versions 10 and 2018 and whatever. And while that's important, this feature allows a user to kind of go in and download that workbook and downgrade to a version that's acceptable. Now in that, again, there's kind of that caveat that the lowest version that it will go down to is 10.2. So if you're running anything lower than that, hopefully not, just be mindful. All in all, from version 10.5 and up, you're going to see tons of web authoring improvements. And as we start getting closer to a 2018.2 release and even 2018.3, you're starting to see more of a shift of the different kind of capabilities that you can do in the web. And one of those things that's introduced into 2018.1 is the ability to connect and create data sources in the web. And why is this important is because now you're really having to justify, at least to me, or if you have a procurement team, the need for Tableau Desktop. And there's always going to be a need for it, but at the time you couldn't create data sources in the web. There are some limitations, but for the most part, I think that this kind of covers the majority of those major types of data connectivities. The other thing that you need to be cognizant of as you start going into 2018 in the server environment, desktop environments and up is now you got renamed site roles. So in 2018.1, Tableau shifted their architecture subscription modeling or to a subscription model mainly. So you have new roles within the platform. Creator, Explorer, and Viewer. And we'll take a look and kind of see what that is all about a little bit later. But why that's important is for those of you that may have some custom scripts or automation that goes on that allows you to create these back-end roles, keep in mind that you may have to adjust that, especially as you go into 2018.2. And we'll definitely cover that more in a little while. In the beta 2018.2, there's a lot to be excited about. And again, these are just short lists. So this is not a complete list of all the features, functionality in there. There's links down at the bottom. Go explore that. In 2018.2, for Windows, we have now Tableau Services Manager, so TSM. TSM was actually introduced in Tableau 10.5 with Linux. And now what we're seeing is more of kind of the universal underlying command line infrastructure for both Windows and Linux. Again, we'll cover it a little bit more, but be cognizant if we're moving away, moving to Tableau Services Manager, something's potentially going away, and that is going to be your tab admin. So we'll get into a little bit more of that, but be aware that for all you Tableau server admins, there's going to be some learning that needs to go on. There's going to be some process changes that needs to go on. So those are the things that you should probably start putting on your roadmap, your agenda to start looking at, either deploy a sandbox, start playing with these products, and start figuring out what types of projects you need to start addressing sooner than later. The other thing that we definitely excited about, probably my most favorite, is dashboards extensions. At the end of this, we'll kind of get into more, but I'll just kind of put a plug in. If you're not part of the pre-release program, the beta program, get on that. There's a lot of opportunities to test these beta platforms, as well as kind of ulterior platforms. So the mobile, you have the extensions API. You even have kind of, the things that are not even on any roadmap yet. So a lot of opportunity to kind of explore that, and dashboard extensions, the extensions API was one of those things that you could participate in that program. You're seeing a lot of data performance improvements in 2018.2, and for those of you, again, that might be on 10.5 or thinking about 10.5, depending on the version, and I know it's not a one-size-fits-all for everybody, but I've always had some kind of issues with performance in one way or another. And again, that's not necessarily to, to mean the version itself, because everybody's got a different back end, a different architecture. But from what I've seen, at least through these 3 versions that we're kind of covering today, overall, my best performance in the environments that I support has been in 2018.2. So I'm excited as a Tableau server admin for a lot of these reasons. For the TSM, getting kind of a new command line infrastructure, being able to standardize some of my automation and code, having that extensibility. The extensions, we'll cover in a little bit on really what that means for you as server admins, but being able to provide that to end users and developers to really expand the capabilities of Tableau through Tableau Desktop and Tableau Server. Automate some of the background job admins. So getting a list of all those processes and being able to manage some of those through the APIs. And This one I kind of throw in at the end here only because it's been a use case that's come up several times. But in your dashboards, we've kind of always had the ability to comment. And as of recent, that collaboration has gotten a little bit better, a lot better. But I know that some companies kind of use workarounds, whether it's through SharePoint lists and integrating those into their dashboards to provide some kind of collaboration or commenting or whatnot. In Tableau 2018.2, you do have the ability to kind of mention people and do some things. So you're really starting to get kind of like this in the social aspect. And the reason, again, why I'm excited, if you take all of these things combined and add those up, this is a lot of stuff, just from what we see here. Again, this isn't everything, but a lot to cover, for a server admin. Again, prior to 10.5 and kind of in this 10 realm, we didn't have a lot of changes, some updates here and there, but pretty much everything was status quo. Now things are moving very fast. There's a lot more to understand that goes into the environment, both on kind of the front end and back end. But again, as I mentioned, it's important for, I think, server admins to also understand what's available in the desktop to be able to support that, their users, and the environments for growth and sustainability. All right, so let's talk about dashboard extensions. So again, if you're not familiar with that, this is still new, beta, and you're not going to see this in 2018.1. You will most likely see this in 2018.2. But extensions kind of give you the ability to programmatically integrate information, data from third-party apps, from Tableau itself, and being able to display information in a dashboard dynamically. And I guess it's really difficult to kind of imagine, what one can do with this, because I think it's only limited based on the creativity of an individual. So being able to, within Tableau Desktop, pull over, so if you're on a dashboard, pull over a widget onto your dashboard that you and or someone may have programmed to allow you to view maybe the information about who created the data source, or how popular this is. Before we would have to maybe look at the server admin views to see who's seen this view, what was maybe the performance like. That's one use case. The other use case that you might want to create is maybe like a feedback mechanism, maybe like a rating. Rate this dashboard. Contact the developer, contact maybe a team that manages the data source of the workbook. Anything else for that matter. There's actually in the beta, we had some extensions that users had created, really innovative. So being able to display images maybe based on your catalog of other particular data. So tons and tons of stuff. The link here to the GitHub actually has more information about dashboard extensions, the documentation on what that is, some community examples. Tableau will have an extension gallery that will be released more than likely once 22.18.2 is dropped. So check that out. But for me, being able to create extensible capabilities like this is really what is making Tableau pretty incredible, because this allows you as a developer or a team to really innovate on this platform. All right, so the next thing, TSM, Tableau Services Manager. And the moment that you install kind of the 2018.1 even, you notice something a little different. Um, as you go into 2018.2, it's definitely apparent. So what Tableau Service Manager is, it's really a kind of a web UI and also a CLI for that matter. But this is where you can manage your settings such as the user authentication, the processes, caching, overall server-related settings. What this does is it installs a self-assigned certificate separately. So if your Tableau server, let's say, is running on my company, you would have to append my company, and then we've got a port number, a default port number in there. What this is actually bringing up, we'll see this in the next slide, but it allows you to dynamically change topology, kind of hot swapping processes. And why this is great today, think about what this could potentially look like in the future. So demand for processes. So today we can dynamically change processes, reallocate them in a live environment without having to shut down the server, adjust the number of maybe VizQLs or cache servers or whatever else, restart, and then you've got some downtime. This allows one to kind of adjust accordingly in a somewhat manual approach, but I think the concept and idea through some automation and maybe some programming and down the road, being able to self-detect that to adjust for the performance that's needed at that time. The other thing I'll just spend a moment on is the upgrade improvements. And we'll kind of make a note here why, once you start getting into this 2018.2 environment, it's really helping. When we do upgrades today, there's several approaches. You can do kind of an in-place upgrade. I think if you're bold and daring, for me, I think I've had the traditional sense of doing a backup, making sure that that's validated, installing kind of a fresh version of Tableau, and then re-importing the backup with a no config or whatnot into that. In Tableau server or in Tableau kind of 2018.2, what we're seeing is that you can actually deploy an upgrade, all the bits that are needed for it, and you're not having to also manage the upgrades or reinstalls for the nodes themselves independently, but it's all being done from one server. Not only that, but if you can pre-deploy the bits and hold off until you actually need to hit that trigger, Tableau's got a documented approach to where they were able to deploy a 5-node cluster and upgrade that in 15 minutes versus a traditional maybe 75-minute upgrade. That's huge. So if you work in multiple environments, production, dev, or sandbox, whatever you want to call it, you can start testing these upgrades and have virtually very little to no downtime. If you do all your testing and have your automation scripts working as they should, again, another huge potential and another compelling reason to maybe hold off and start testing 2018.1 and definitely 2018.2. All right. So as I mentioned, just a little bit of background onto the TSM. So again, TSM was introduced on Linux. It replaced multiple tools, the server configuration, tab admin, the monitor and license keys. And you're going to start seeing that as you start pushing into 2018.2 and beyond. So my advice, and this was definitely apparent to me as I started playing with 2018.2, start looking to convert anything that you have that runs automation, anything that might run scripts that uses tab admin. I've got some links, I believe, in my resources section of the slide that kind of give you a matrix on what's the correlation between this tab admin command and this TSM command. So not everything is 100% like for like supported, but again, the documentation that I've got kind of outlines what to be cognizant of. So the sooner you kind of get on this, the sooner it is for everyone. And I will make a note, just again, full disclosure, as I was playing with this, working with this TSM, this web UI that you can kind of see there, adjusting the processes and restarting it through the web, I did not have much luck. So in theory, everything did work as it should have. However, I did have to go back to the command line and actually execute the restarts or kind of change some things via that process. But that's not necessarily for everyone, just my experience. This kind of interface, being able to dynamically change things and kind of restart them as you need it without having any downtime, exposure to the users, it's huge. Again, another compelling reason to start moving towards the 2018.1 and then ultimately 2018.2. Start looking at this. So this wasn't actually something that I had played with, but it is going to be something that I need to definitely address as part of my deployments are starting to use more of these entity types of whether it's SAML or Kerberos, or maybe even some web data connectors for that matter. So as we start to look at 2018.2, you're starting to see these entity definitions and templates. And really what it is it's a set of configuration code that allows you to set these entity types in such a way where you can actually test configuration before it's actually implemented. And so maybe a good example of that is as we go through and we do today our tab admin set commands and we set all these things, maybe we set some SSL or set some SAML settings, and then we do a tab admin config and we wait for the server to restart and we said, all right, it's not working, it gave an error, something failed, but this could have been 10, 20, 30, maybe 2 hours later, depending on how your system's configured and how long those things kind of take. In this environment or this kind of functionality, what's happening is this is giving you real-time validation of, hey, is this configuration going to be valid? And did Tableau kind of give you the thumbs up, says, yeah, you're good, go ahead and move on. So this is almost immediate a return on, hey, you did something right or you did something wrong, no consequence, go fix it and try it again. So you're not having to wait, again, the downtime and the expectations of end users. So another thing that I'm going to look forward to as I start implementing a lot of these functionality, if these pertain to you, again, this is a kind of a 2018.2 target. Check this out. I've got link information in the slide. We talked about this before with the release of 2018.1, do this new subscription model. We've got new site roles. So in there, we've got things like creator, explorer, and viewer licenses. I have it addressed in the next slide, but I'm gonna bring it up now because I know some people are concerned with, well, I've got core license today, and I'm already kind of on this. Is this going to affect me? And the answer is, I guess it depends. It depends on if any new desktop users or users that come into your environment have adopted that new license format. So I'll leave it at that for a moment until we get to the next slide. But I do want to touch on this. So as we start going into 2018.1, with any release, there's always new enhancements to REST functionality. So if you're doing any kind of programmatic work, just be cognizant. I'm sure you guys all are, but be cognizant of any changes that might be going on with regards to the functionality. any new features or functions that you have access to. In the 2018.2, it's targeting the REST 3.0. However, if some of these things that are applicable don't work for you, keep in mind that you can still use the 2.8 version successfully. So some of these new things are adding users to group, adding users to site, creating groups, users in groups, users on sites, updating groups and updating users. So a lot of cool stuff that you can start doing through REST automation. But again, it's always good to understand what's going to be impacted to you, your users, and your environment. So make sure you pay close attention to that. Now, as I mentioned again, should I do anything with these new site roles? Am I going to have to change my security model or anything like that? And these things can get confusing. Ultimately, I guess, again, it depends. If you are an existing enterprise customer with core licensing, you still currently have the same site roles that you have in previous versions. Once you onboard potentially a new user with the new maybe subscription licensing, Creator, Explorer, Viewer, that's when you're going to start to see some new rules embedded in your environment. And you need to understand how to address that, especially if you have automation that creates roles and permissions. Look and see how you need to potentially address that. There was a great article that, in the community that I found, again, major props to Toby. He always has great things to share. But take a look at this link. I think this really kind of sums up if you should be worried, what you should be doing, if anything, or what do I need to know in order to support my environment today and down the road. I think to make sure that you cover all your bases, understand how the site roles and permissions change. There's a great matrix on what it was before to what it is compared to today. Is that still supported? Is there anything new that's changing? Is there anything that's been deprecated? So take a look at that. And as always, whenever you're deploying a version, look and see what's out there. There's tons of resources, and we'll cover that in just a moment. If you're planning on deploying 10.5, there's a great link that Tableau provides. It goes over the architecture, it goes over the networking, it goes over the security, authorization, authentication, all those things that you should be cognizant of as you deploy or look to upgrade your platforms. There's links there for 10.5, 2018.1, 2018.2. As always, there's always options for consulting help. So Tableau provides consultation services to allow you to upgrade your environments, assess your networking, the infrastructure, the usage, all that kind of stuff. If you're in a single node environment, Windows-based only, there's a free program for organizations to actually go through and receive help on the upgrade process. Again, I think every admin kind of has their own way of doing a deployment and or upgrade, but some of these processes or services that Tableau can offer might help you out. I always like kind of looking at these things just to see if there's anything I miss or something new that I haven't explored. So again, the security architecture, risk, performance issues, potential, governance, scalability, sustainability of your platform. Those are all things that you should be considering when moving to that version. And this is kind of a breakdown of that. So the complementary assistance, again, is only valid for individuals that are running a one node platform. So you've got about 2 to 4 hours. They'll kind of go through, work with you on a call, review your upgrade checklist, help you perform the upgrade, validate the upgrade. So that's a great free service. If you do need support, obviously Tableau will pretty much provide you any type of support, if you got some cash. So some of those things you see it planning the call all the way to working with resolutions, documentation, etc. For some of you that might be seasoned, you might have all the documentation and checklists that you need to go through anyway, and that's great. And just a little bit more on, what you get out of the consulting side of things. So in the resources, spend some time. So again, if you don't have these bookmarked, these should be kind of your go-to thing. There's the Tableau coming soon. So this is really focused on what's coming in the betas. So if you go to the coming soon website today, you're going to see some of those features that are pertinent to Tableau 2018.2. Hopefully very soon we'll start seeing some things with 2018.3. The pre-release program. So this is really your opportunity to engage in the beta. And I get this kind of questions, from my peers and executives. So why do we even need to participate in the beta? We'd rather other companies kind of do that and deploy that. Why I say to participate in the beta is, one, to kind of get a look at, what's coming, understanding if you engage with your business, what their needs are, and whether there's some things that are addressed in those releases that potentially could be time savers, money savers, making money off of things. So if you do or don't have an environment for a beta, spin one up. Tableau with 2018.1, it can work on 2 cores now. So get a junky laptop if you want and throw Tableau server onto that and play with it. Understand what some of those new features, functions are doing. If you run a center of excellence, have a pilot program. Invite some of your users that might participate in certain areas, HR, finance, IT, whoever. Get a mix of the back-end stuff, your Oracles and Teradatas and SQL and Hadoops, and make sure that those kind of platforms are working as they should with these new releases. I think the goal for all of us is to really get efficient and not spend so much time doing the manual tasks. And as we get into these later versions of Tableau, more and more capabilities and features are available to support and streamline the things that we do today that might take a long time, freeing up your ability to actually participate more with the business and to do things like the pre-release program. So if you're not on it, get on it. There's no cost to you. A lot of great information, some insights as to what's coming down the road. You get kind of that sneak peek as with their roadmap, hands-on, really cool stuff. Again, we kind of saw that before, but the Tableau server upgrade page, this is kind of your one-stop shop resource on making sure that you have your I's dotted, T's crossed, and on all those types of things. We've got the Tableau server resources for administrators, this forum that we're in, the Tableau server admin recordings, they're all documented up on the website. And I recommend going through the past ones. There's a lot of good presentations that have to do with permissions and performance and the Postgres and creating custom views and pretty much everything else. So I encourage people to participate in presenting and doing some of these things so we can start building up a really cool library of stuff. Again, one of those biggest things that I'm finding as I start exploring more into 2018.1 and beyond, make sure you're familiar with what's going on in the TSM and how that's going to affect you, your scripts, automation, whatever you might be using with regards to tab admin. So check that out. There's also a complete TSM command line reference available. The other thing too, and there's actually a couple other links that I'll add on there too, but it's important for us to understand what's new and what's been available in the releases. And Tableau releases monthly. So you're going to get a 2018.1, 2018.1.2, and so forth. If you use this link and put in the release number, that's going to give you information and insights as to what's new in that environment. There's also a page for the known issues that it's actually embedded in one of these other links, but I'll put this in the slide deck and share that with Mark. But go out there and actively look at that. Can't tell you how many times that I've found issues with a proposed release that we had to kind of pause and take another look at and test and whether or not this was actually the right deployment. I don't think anyone here would want to deploy a product that's going to impact them negatively. So look at the known issues page. Make sure that none of the prior releases have issues that you might be or would experience, and choose appropriately. So there's a lot that goes into supporting your Tableau platform. Again, from a high level, the things that we really hit today was TSM, was talked about data sources in the web. We talked about a lot of stuff. So with that, kind of wraps up the presentation. Again, hopefully we can have, for the remaining time, some questions or discussions about experience or concerns about upgrading or moving to a new version.
All right, thank you very much, Michael. For those who have questions, please press the Q&A button to submit your questions. Michael, there are a few pending questions already there. Are you able to read? Are you able to see the Q&A? Not, I can read.
Yeah, let me bring it up. Give me a second.
Yeah.
All right. So the first question, I'm going from top to bottom. In TSM 2018.2, does that mean you'll no longer be able to refresh workbooks from the command line? So tab command is not going away. So you can still do the refreshes, but just make sure that you're using the most current release of the tab command and test accordingly. But I think the goal, though, ultimately down the road is to try to start using more REST functionality in your processes. But no, the tab command is staying for a while.
I agree with you, Michael. For this one, if I can add, I actually to refresh workbooks automatically after ETL completion, I do not recommend the users, publishers to do it with tab command anymore, because it creates priority 0 in the background. I will rather them to use the REST API, do that, which will create priority 50 in a task list, which I think is fair to create a task with the priority 50 versus 0. That's my comment.
Yep, you get a gold star. I'll mark that answer correct.
Thank you.
All right, so too bad 2018 doesn't have the function to control the resources about which site project to use the background. Yeah. So I think the question, or maybe the comment, being able to allocate what type of maybe users and or processes can use maybe which servers or nodes, so kind of targeted approach. Yeah, I don't know if that's on the roadmap or not, but especially if you're working in an environment with multi-site or multiple customers, it's a shared environment today. But if you don't have, you want to allocate, I think, a lot of the resources to, either the departments or customers that might be paying a little bit more. So I think that's an idea that's been posted in the community before, but if not, let's get on it, Tableau. All right, so all right, the next one, which Postgres views give default permission or default properties, comment added to the dimension while creating Tableau data sources? We need to give this data dictionary to the users. So through three, I don't know offhand which tables, but Tableau's got the entire Postgres documented. I don't have the link on me, but you can kind of look, and you might have to do some tinkering to play with, but it gives you the field names and keys, and you should be able to figure out pretty quick what views and or tables are related to get you that information. Again, I just don't have it on the top of my head.
Yeah, just reply you directly. I just reply you with one link. You have to dig out a bit more of that.
So the email address for the complimentary service, I don't know if I had that on there, but in the link that's in the deck, you can use that. Again, I'm sure Mark will share this after the presentation today, but you click on that. If you're in a single node environment on Windows, that is available to you. So you'll be able to click on that link, fill out a form, and should be good to go. Oh, you got it. Never mind. All right. So 2018.2, the tab admin going away completely. So Victor, from what I've seen, and again, it was beta, so I can't say for sure if it's going away. We'll have to find out when the product's fully released. But I did not have a tab admin command available in my release, so it was TSM. But again, that could have changed. We'll find out soon. We have 10 backgrounders in our system, but we have around 600 subscriptions that run the same time. Since background is single-threaded, so things are improving with multiple processes being able to do that. But I think, Mark, you've got kind of an interesting scenario. I know that you guys programmatically look at your extracts and or subscriptions and kind of reallocate different priorities based on maybe the usage or demand.
Subscriptions. First of all, I do not like subscriptions. Tableau is designed for interactive. Subscription just goes the other way around. I really do not encourage subscriptions, but it is a feature available, so I cannot stop them. So let's put it this way first. Then I also noticed in my server environment, although I have a lot more backgrounders, but still, I found some smart publishers. Their workbook is so slow, so they use subscriptions. So
like a cache warmer, right?
For what? Yeah. So I found some subscriptions on my server can take half hour. One subscription running in the background can take half hour. So it's not possible for end consumers to click from the server, but it's doable from the subscription. Now, there's no such settings where server admins like us, we can control things like that. So what I plan to do for subscriptions, I'm going to add a Python script to stop any type of subscription if the subscription runs more than certain minutes. I'm going to start with 10 minutes. I'm going to stop those subscriptions because they are taking advantage of my server resources in a wrong way. And slowly by slowly, I may tidy in my criteria.
Yeah, and Neil, I'll add to subscriptions. I think for the most part, you got to really, I guess, understand, are they getting the subscriptions because they want to actually look at that data Or are they just concerned that maybe they need to look at it because something happened? If that's the case, Tableau's implemented the data alerts, which are getting better and better. And those are basically trigger-based events. When something happens, it's notifying you. So I think the thing is really you have to help educate and try to change behavior of users. If they're getting subscriptions just for the sake of, I need to know kind of what's going on, maybe suggest creating data alerts instead. Say you're only going to receive something when something actually occurs. Otherwise, everything's good to go. So that may reduce the number of subscriptions in your environment.
I agree. Also, Neil, since you asked this question for subscription, look at all the 600 subscriptions you had at the same time, and try to find out how long it took. I think likely you'll find out that the problem may not be the quantity, how many subscriptions, likely is like how long it took. If you can find out the long-running subscriptions and talk with those people who are doing that, you may solve the problem quickly by just kill a few ones. That's my comment.
Yeah, I saw your comment, Neil. High five. Good job. Yeah, so I think the way to approach that, because yes, they're lazy and they're probably not going to do anything. You're going to probably have to do some automation, like Mark's saying. You're the one managing the platform. You got to make sure things are healthy. If they're not taking action, you take the action. Give them the opportunity through notifications, but if they don't do something, you have a process that will take care of that. So Venkata, you say, does the Tableau server backup, can that be accomplished on the TSM page? I don't think there's a button like you can do like the logs. I don't recall. I still think you have to script that out through the TSM. The server status is degraded. So yes, the TSM page will still be available because really they're two separate. It's almost like two separate web services. One's running on a different port, but you got to have the TSM in order to do kind of the maintenance and the restarts capability. So if your server's down, that's kind of still running. But it's always available through your CLI. You can run the appropriate TSM command to kind of get a status of things, restart services, and check on things. And yes, the TSM is the alternative or is what's changing for tab admin. So think of that as goodbye tab admin, hello TSM. And yes, so you're setting the limits, you're doing all that stuff through TSM. TSM is your new tab admin. So learn those configurations. The link that I have in the slide deck kind of gives you that cheat sheet matrix on what your command was before and what it's going to look like in the future. We're on a core-based license. If Tableau will let us new model. So if you're on core today and you've been paying the core, you can stay on core. I don't know. I mean, there's rumors that they want to hold solely to subscription, and that's an expensive type of thing. But you may have a mixed environment. It may make sense for certain users to have subscription-based licensing, and some of them just buy the products outright and keep adding more cores. So that's something I'd say, work with your account managers on. But today, if you want to add, 100 more cores to your system, and you've done that, great. If you're a brand new user to Tableau, never purchased before, you're pushed into that subscription model. You don't have the ability to go out and purchase core.
Yeah, I think I agree. Yep. All right, we are actually at the end of our time.
So Venkata, no, it's still not a requirement. But the SSL for TSM is automatically self-installed. It's a self-installed certificate. So initially you may get, like, hey, warning, this page isn't trusted. You can ignore that, but no, if you want to keep your data susceptible to people, sure, non-SSL.
All right. No more questions. Well done. Thanks very much, Michael. This is awesome.
All right. Thanks, everyone.